You're listening to the Telltale Channel. Don't forget to check me out on all social media: Patreon, Twitter, Teespring, and Etsy. All links can be found in the description or on my website, telltaleatheist.com. So the next article I wanted to take a look at is entitled, "With Mike Pence Watching, Dr. Fauci Praised the Dignity of the Gay Community." Let me give you guys just a kind of a short overview of who Fauci is, okay? I'm unclear on his credentials. He's a PhD virologist, I think, and he's basically been leading the charge in the White House press briefings and basically the U.S. effort to stop the virus from spreading. He's been talking a lot about social distancing, and he's been working with Dr. Birx, B-I-R-X. Been working with Dr. Birx a lot, providing models to Trump, advising Trump on what the best course of action is and why we can't take certain paths at this moment, things like that. So he's actually very widely adored at this immediate moment, Fauci is. There's a petition out at this moment to name him Sexiest Man Alive. A dude's like in his 70s or 80s, but he is just adored right now. He is the shit. He is the leader in this struggle that the U.S. is depending on right now. So, and he's been working in this field of virology and pandemics and things like that for decades and decades. Now, we haven't seen anything quite like this in 100 years or more, but we have seen epidemics. So, smaller scale versions of what's happening right now with other illnesses. For example, Fauci was working on the HIV/AIDS epidemic in various areas during the early days of the outbreak. So I think it came out originally in the 80s, the illness was discovered. And I could be wrong here, but I think it hit its peak in the 2000s, the 2010s. That's when the epidemic really hit full swing. It was a serious issue. HIV/AIDS was. And this guy, Fauci, was working on it through the entire thing. To summarize what happened, I was watching the press briefing when this was said. Fauci basically said, I was working on the HIV situation when it was unfolding, and I just have to tell you, just like the courage and honesty of the gay community dealing with all of this, it was so incredibly honorable and well done. Just destroying the stigma behind it. He's just praising the gay community, as well he should. And right in the corner, right behind him, there was Mike Pence. And Pence hates gay people. Pence hates them. Trump famously came out on stage one time and was talking about how Pence wanted to hang them all or something like that. It's like, holy shit. This is insane. So anyway, let's read the article. Like, it's really, really crazy how much Pence hates the LGBT community. Disturbing. So let's read the article and see what it says. If you've been watching the daily rallies thrown by Donald Trump in the guise of press briefings, then you may have enjoyed watching Dr. Anthony Fauci contradict much of what Trump says with facts and honesty. Unfortunately, Fauci has had to kind of keep it zipped on facts and honesty to some extent. I feel like Trump kind of muzzled him a little bit because he's going to fire him if he doesn't, it's really not good. I feel bad for Fauci that he has to do it the way he's doing it. The director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases did it again yesterday, but this time Mike Pence was the one who showed up. Fauci was talking about how COVID-19 is affecting African American communities more than most, and he compared it to his work with HIV/AIDS in the 1980s. Along the way, he spoke about how the response of the gay community, their incredible courage and dignity and strength and activism, helped change the stigma against them. That couldn't have been easy for Pence, whose career has been defined by his bigotry against that same group. I was actually listening to it in my ear when it was going on, and I didn't get a chance to actually see Pence's face, but I can't imagine he had a smile on his face through it. This is a tweet from C-SPAN. Fauci gave his address next to Pence, who has long been known for supporting anti-LGBTQ plus legislation and seriously mishandled an HIV outbreak in Scott County, Indiana, back when he was governor of the state. While the HIV/AIDS epidemic continues to disproportionately affect queer, black, and Latino men and trans women, with an estimated 38,000 new HIV infections per year, the crisis peaked in the mid-1980s when there were an estimated 130,000 new HIV infections. Pence's role as governor of Indiana was a prime example of how poor leadership can make an already bad situation far worse than it needs to be. Well said. While COVID-19 doesn't discriminate in who it infects, the reality is that it will disproportionately affect minority groups more so than the privileged for reasons that include a lack of access to affordable health care, a need to work even when it may not be medically safe to do so, and an inability to avoid interactions with strangers. If only this administration were willing to make necessary changes in healthcare and the minimum wage, the impact wouldn't be quite so hard. But Trump, Pence, and the GOP are poised to make the same mistakes they've made in the past. I honestly couldn't have said it better myself. That is extremely on point. From my understanding, the models right now are showing that if we did nothing at all, if we just kept the country open and continued doing our thing as we were doing before, we would be looking at between 2 and 3 million deaths, I believe, and I think a 70% infection rate. On the other hand, if we did social distancing, contact tracing, all completely flawlessly, look at it this way. South Korea got their first case the same day we did, and they are almost completely out of the woods at this point. They traced down everybody that their cases had talked to, quarantined them. They did an absolutely phenomenal job. And look where the U.S. is right now. We may not hit 2 or 3 million deaths, but we could have hit 5,000 deaths from this, and it could have been over. That could have been a possibility if we'd done this the correct way with leadership that was worth anything at all. As it stood last week, we were looking at 200,000 deaths, optimistically, I think. It looks like it's lowered. The model has scaled back some as a result of our social distancing efforts. We need to continue to do this. I think the model is saying between 60 and 100,000 deaths at this moment is what we're looking at. I don't really remember. Time will tell. Either way, I'm really not a fan of the leadership that we're dealing with at this immediate moment. I'm not a fan of the fact that we have to deal with the leadership that we have at this immediate moment while trying to wade our way through this. I wish we had a scientist at the helm that was actually controlling things and knew what they were doing. Dr. Fauci appears to know exactly what he's doing and know exactly what he's talking about and know how to solve this problem. But he's not really the leader right now, is he? Every decision that Fauci makes, he has to convince Trump that it's the right decision. And Trump has backtracked and backtracked like 4 different times at this point. Flip-flop, flip-flop. Pence, honestly, isn't a whole lot better. Although he would give direct leadership, Pence would. I don't know that I would want that leadership going the direction that it would go with him. So we're not in a great position at this moment. I'm just hoping we can see our way through.